In this ideal landscape, a wedding is taking place. Two people exchange vows. A man takes a woman. The carpenter of Nazareth, St. Joseph, becomes the husband of a virgin, whose name was Mary. Surrounded by their friends, they're united by the priest. It is a momentous day for these families and all those dear to them. But what about those people in the background? Why don't they approach to witness this wondrous event, instead of hanging back in small groups in the square and under the colonnade? Perhaps they expect the wedding to take place in this elegant temple. If only they came forward, they would see that it's all over, that the Virgin is already a bride. Her hand and finger outstretched to receive the ring, she has already said, yes. That is where the action is. That's what matters. Has the painter forgotten this? Why should he fill up the whole upper half of the composition with a strange building and idle passers-by, and pack the foreground with the wedding scene? Is he so intent on showing off his talents as an architect that he forces upon us a classical building, admirably proportioned, no doubt, but which bears no relation to our subject? After all, this picture is about a wedding, not an architecture prize. We even get the sense that the two halves of the composition are two distinct pictures, stacked one on top of the other. The first one could be called Imaginary Temple in a Tuscan Landscape, the second simply The Marriage of the Virgin. Indeed, nothing of the first picture is echoed in the second, and nothing of the second is reflected in the first. In fact, on closer inspection, we clearly see a division between the top and bottom of this painting. The artist seems to have conceived of it as two separate watertight compartments, preventing all crossover between the idealized building above and the concrete event below. Why separate the temple and the wedding? Were those absent-minded bystanders in the background perhaps right to hang back? Was it not, after all, in the sanctuary that the event was supposed to take place? Unless, of course, the painter wishes to evoke another alliance, the fruit of which Mary already carries within the secret sanctuary of her body. The evangelist St. Matthew describes it thus: When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be with child of the Holy Spirit. At the time of her wedding, the Holy Virgin is therefore already an expectant mother, carrying within her the Son of God, Jesus Christ, whom she conceived shortly before at the Annunciation. This painting, therefore, describes the genuine alliance through which Joseph becomes the chaste husband of Our Lady and the adoptive father of this child, whose divine origins their families both ignore. Jesus being the son, as was supposed, of Joseph. The human and ritual marriage represented here therefore harks back to the divine and supernatural alliance concluded between God and the Virgin Mary in the name of all humanity at the time of the Annunciation. And the angel said to her, The Holy Spirit will come upon thee, and the power of the Most High will overshadow thee. Therefore the child to be born will be called Holy, the Son of God. And Mary said, Behold the handmaid of the Lord, be it done to me according to thy word. And the angel departed from her. For their friends and relatives, the ring that Mary receives on her finger signals her union with Joseph. But for the newlyweds, and for us, the same ring designates Our Lady as the wife of the Holy Spirit, although in the eyes of men, Joseph is her husband. She is the temple in which God makes himself incarnate. We can now understand why Raphael has given such emphasis to this temple. It may dominate the wedding, but rather than distract us, it leads us instead to the universal alliance concluded at the Annunciation, when Our Lady consented to become the Mother of God. We must now consider the specific architecture of this building. It refers back to earlier archetypes, dear to the painters and architects of the Renaissance. It can, for example, be compared to this fresco of Perugino's, of whom Raphael was a disciple. In both images, the paving of the huge esplanade converges towards the temple and the centre of the composition's perspective. Both temples are the same height, covered by the same cupola and set against a similar background of bluish hills. The differences, however, are more telling. Whereas Perugino's temple is an octagon with distinct facades, Raphael doubles the number of sides to 16 to soften the breaks in the circumference. His building becomes cylindrical. The temple becomes a tower. Further reinforcing the circular aspect of the temple, Raphael links together the canopies in Perugino's picture into a continuous thread. Instead of one pair of columns at each of 4 cardinal points, Sancio erects instead a covered gallery to surround his tower. Why adopt this peristyle? Although visibly inspired by the architecture of Perugino, on this one point Raphael breaks with the conventions of his master. What significance does the genius disciple attach to this innovation? In any other picture one would hesitate to find an answer, but in the marriage of the Virgin, how can one not associate the ring tended by St. Joseph with this enormous stone circle resting on delicate columns? The new peristyle surrounds Raphael's tower like a ring does a finger. This building is the sculpted echo of Mary putting on her ring. What a breathtaking metaphor, pregnant with so many meanings. Deploying only stone and space, the architectural medium thus lays bare the silent splendour of the Holy Alliance. This temple is an incarnation which translates an article of faith into a material vision. Although married to Joseph, the Virgin is betrothed to the Holy Spirit. This bride is already a mother, but still a virgin. Both Raphael's tower and the divine child are enclosed, one by the pillars and the other by the body of Mary. Already surrounded, the tower anticipates Mary's gesture as she receives Joseph's ring, and recalls the recent alliance of the Annunciation. Finally, the discreet halos surrounding the heads of the betrothed couple provides a step between the ring and the peristyle. Let us explore further this revealing link between the Virgin and the temple. All the lines of the picture converge not towards the Virgin, who stands to the left of the central axis, but towards the temple. And towards which point exactly? Neither towards the cupola, nor towards a window or a column, but towards the door. To reach it, one has to climb 8 steps. And to reach Mary, whether her shoulder or her feet, we also count 8 flags of precious paving, a symmetry broken in Joseph's case by the revelation of a 9th and 10th stone created by the gaps next to his arm and knee. Likewise, the painter has revealed between 4 and 7 stones leading up to the men and women on either side. Mary is therefore the only figure in the painting who occupies a symmetrical position relative to the doorway, since each is positioned 8 intervals, either paving stones or steps, away from the base of the temple. From the Virgin to the door, we count 16 panels, echoing the 16 sides that make up the circumference of the tower. As if to illustrate the litanies that call Mary an ivory tower and gate to heaven, the composition reinforces the link between the Virgin and the temple, and more precisely between the bride and the doorway. The latter frames an oblong vertical shape, the bottom half of which is segmented by a large swathe of dark blue. This colour appears on only one item of clothing, Mary's drape, which traces the same line between her hips as the blue horizon between the posts of the door. As we have seen, it is towards this door that the picture's perspective converges. If we restore the lines erased by the painter, we notice that they intersect neither on the ground nor really in the middle of the sky, but rather where they meet in that ethereal zone where earth and air unite in hazy hues of blue. At the same relative height above the Virgin's cape, dogma and piety converge, pointing out to us the womb from which God will be born. Here, heaven makes contact with earth. The bride of the Holy Spirit truly becomes our gateway, our road to heaven. Using the inspired device of opening the temple on both sides, the artist draws not only our gaze, but also our spirits towards the double doorway and onwards towards the heavens. The figures dotted around behind the wedding seem to serve only the function of filling the edges of the temple. Yet, if the temple represents the Virgin, the quiet presence of these people in the square at the top of the steps and under the gallery symbolises the familiarity of Mary's friends. We are encouraged to join them under this covered gallery, which stretches out like a stone mantle over our fragile souls. The 6 groups are symmetrically arranged around the door, 3 on each side, located respectively at the far ends of the square, then above and below the steps. Almsgiving is the only readily identifiable action. The donation humbly demanded by the beggar on the left is freely given by the figure on the right, whose long green robe and inclined head recall the priest in the foreground, who presents the ring tendered by St. Joseph to the Virgin. This is a discreet allusion to Mary's role. She who has been blessed with the greatest treasure in the person of Jesus stands before her Son to present the petitions of mankind. Mary begs on our behalf for the grace with which she overflows. In the foreground, arranged equally symmetrically, 5 men and 5 women surround the Virgin and Joseph. The women forming the bride's retinue are her friends and relatives. The closer they are to the centre and front of the scene, the further their coats open up to reveal more of the dress underneath, and the further their shawls around their necks fall down to their shoulders. This gradation culminates in the same way as the temple rises above the 8 steps, with Mary emerging from the revealed collar of her dress, and her forearms wrapped by her robe, just like the columns embracing the tower. The 5 men are Joseph's unhappy rivals. Legend indeed recounts that only he whose baton bloomed would be judged sufficiently chaste and worthy to marry the Holy Virgin. Joseph's flower therefore disqualifies the other pretenders, who, the closer they get to the centre foreground, stoop to bend and break their barren canes. Finally, the priest ensures the unity between the 2 parties. His hands bring together those of the Holy Virgin and St. Joseph. This sacerdotal action guarantees the validity of the marriage. But if he is officiating, why exactly does the minister not stand upright in a hieratic pose that is appropriate for the solemnity of the occasion? For his head is inclined to the right. Is this only to draw our attention to the Holy Virgin? This pose allows us to see the picture's vertical symmetrical axis, which unites the ring held by St. Joseph and the point of the pediment above the temple door. It seems as if the priest stands back from this invisible line, as if trying to avoid its trajectory. Using this compositional device, Raphaël reminds us that the priest is merely acting as the representative of another sovereign priest, whose calling will have no end. If we follow down the length of this vertical axis, we reach the minister's belt. Admiring its decorations, we see that it is adorned with a garland of leaves, which has at its extremities 4 pierced leaves, and in the centre a single flower, also pierced. Are these details mere coincidence, or should we read into them a stylization of Christ on the cross, whose heart, hands and feet were also punctured? Moreover, doesn't the general outline of this belt suggest a human form standing with its arms outstretched? Such an allusion would surely be fitting. Indeed, the present marriage has taken place so that it can provide the child God with the family and education he expects. But it is also with a view to dying on the cross to redeem us sinners that the divine child demands a family to protect him until he reaches manhood. God comes to forge an alliance. He has entered quietly, but not like a thief, into a sleeping world. He has taken a mother and become flesh, and is already setting us free. We cannot see him, but we know that he lives in Mary's womb. Soon he will appear, soon he will speak, and we will contemplate the ring of grace which he will have slipped on our own fingers. Our hope is not in vain, for already this husband has promised us, through the words of the prophet Hosea, "I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you to me in righteousness and in justice, in steadfast love and in mercy. I will betroth you to me in faithfulness, and you shall know the Lord."